So how are you going to help my spouse who just called me and said to me, are we really going to be okay? The basis of every good relationship is to understand what people truly value. When you all get together for a Broncos game or for a Bears game, when you get together, you have something in common. You have something you value, whether that's a sports team or whether that's a particular number from an investment perspective. And so how do we get to that? What are the commonalities of our values? For the couple that seems to be in sync on many, many things, we literally go through a deck of 52 cards. It's a value deck. And it says, well, I value travel. I value charitable giving. I value, and all these things are values. And so they're to come up and say, well, let's split the deck in half. What are things we throw out? What are things we keep? And then the next exercise gets a little bit more difficult. What do we truly value? Let's come to the top 10. And now as a couple, they have to work together to come up with what are the top 10 values that we have. And it sounds really easy until you try to go do this. And the next step is to come up with what are the top 5 values in priority order. So if we value travel to go see friends in faraway places, well, that's fine if that's the number one value and we love traveling because we're in that stage of our life and we stop and see friends. What's that budget look like? Above and beyond your normal living expenses, and when do we plan on really doing that? And so how does that relate to volatility in the market? Well, it's everything, because what you value, where your heart is, what's really important to you. And as a couple, what's really important to you, the collective you, is these 5 things. Then our conversation isn't about the volatility of the day. It isn't about the tranquility of the day. It's about what, if any, impact does it have on what we're trying to accomplish. So if we're trying to accomplish making sure that our children don't have a college education bill, that they're funded for X period of time, or that we have a second home, or that we can travel, or that we can do charitable giving. If we understand that, then the volatility of the day doesn't make that much difference. What makes a difference is, are we getting to where we want to go? And we understand it's not a smooth, paved, perfect road lined with, fragrant flowers and a little breeze at the right temperature for both of us. It, in fact, a lumpy sky, if you will, and it pushes us constantly to say, well, okay, but does this impact what we're trying to accomplish? And if the answer is no, it gives you a different perspective. So if we start with that in mind, if we begin with the end in mind, to quote Stephen Covey, but as a practical matter, if we put it in a broader perspective of, does it really affect that which we value, and have our values changed, or are we willing to compromise our values based on whatever the headline is of the day? I'd say that most people that I work with, they understand that, and frankly, they appreciate that very, very much. And that's something where I look at it and I go, okay, so I understand up front, what do they value? What's most important to them? How does our activity feed into each one of these values that they have collectively determined to be most important to them? And then we begin the process of developing a portfolio that helps them get there, not only financially, but emotionally. And oftentimes we hear from their children or those people who are impacted that they really appreciate what we're doing for mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, etc. So as things happen, we end up bringing in the next generation and the next generation. And they get treated the same way because their values are different. So they're different individuals, and it's kind of it's really a fun process. It's gratifying for me. It's very satisfying and gratifying for the client, and together we grow. There is no doubt in my mind that unless you live in a barrel on an island where there's zero connectivity, that you've seen the volatility, the chaos, what seemingly is unprecedented, which is a word I just really despise because nothing's really new under the sun. But an unprecedented level of volatility, and look at the value of this currency versus that currency, And ultimately, I get the question, so how are you going to help my spouse who just called me and said to me, are we really going to be okay? And I have to sit back a little bit and not to arrogantly say, well, of course we're going to be okay. Just look at the long term and forget about the events of the day. That really is not a very, very good answer. Well, it may be the right answer. It's not a very good answer. And as a result of that, we have to be able to say, well, okay, so what's driving that emotion? What's driving that concern? Because I can assure you the reason why there was a news channel who had a headline last week that said Dow drops by 588 points. Capital markets flee. That was the headline. And I received that in an email because somebody had actually had their spouse send that to them and said, send this to Mike, see what he thinks. So I waited till the next day. And my initial reaction was to send an email back, which was the next headline, Dow's ripping today, up by more than 500 points. But I thought that's not a good thing to send because that sounds like I really just want to dismiss the one day, which I did want to dismiss the one day from a mathematical equation. It's, call it round numbers 1% on the Dow, which is 30 stocks. But without consideration of that, the question becomes what's really driving the emotion of the spouse and why this sudden concern for the email of the day? Because I can assure you that next day when I sent this and said, really what the concern is not the movement of 500 points in any given day on a particular index. The concern is, why are we so concerned about the day? What is it that's caused somebody to react in a less than logical manner, if you will? And what are we supposed to do about that? Oftentimes we try to get to what's driving each one of a couple, if you will, in order to understand, and then collectively, how do they come together? And here's one of the ways we've fashioned this, and I'm thinking of a few couples that I work with right now. They literally have two completely different investment strategies within their own retirement accounts, okay, their own IRAs, their own Roths. They've got two different strategies going, but then collectively they have joint investment account. And therein lies where the rubber meets the road of, okay, you can satisfy this one here and this one here, but can you actually make those things come together? And can we all understand that not all of our eggs are in the really conservative basket and not all of our eggs are in the really moderately aggressive basket, but together, what does it look like? What's the target we're shooting for? And how do we measure success? Both in terms of mathematically, what's the number we're shooting for? And then emotionally, how do we feel about that intersection of the two portfolios? And is it still going to accomplish that which we want it to accomplish, which is a number and a feeling? And therein lies the art of what it is we try to do. I had a call from a client the other day, and she asked me, what's going on with my husband? And I said, well, I'm really not sure. What do you mean? And she said, well, no, let me be clear. It's about the market volatility. And he keeps telling me, well, here's, the market's up and then it's down and we've got this thing that's bothering him and this invasion here or chaos there or somebody said something. And what do I tell him? We can go through history and 2020 hindsight, we can look back and we can say, oh my gosh, what happened in the year 1999, the euphoria? What happened in the year 2000? Oh my goodness, the world almost came to an end, but it didn't. And if you put things in a broader perspective, and if you understand history a little bit, it's most helpful. But it doesn't help you today because you don't say, I remember in 19 blah, 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 or in 2000 whatever. That's helping me to understand how upset I am at today's headline, today's news, today's market report, today's whatever. The question becomes, and I had somebody ask me this a long, long time ago, and I didn't even realize it when I was a kid. May he rest in peace. He was a wonderful man, and I delivered his newspaper. And I remember we were having a conversation about something, and he asked me, he said, okay, Mike, so let me ask you a question. In 20 years, does it really matter? And I looked at him and I said, no, sir. And he said, okay, let's move on. And I had no idea I had no idea what he did for a living. Didn't care. I was delivering the Des Moines Register on Lorton Avenue, and still remember his name. A wonderful, wonderful gentleman. Know his two sons quite well. And I found out that he actually he was a psychologist. And this is how he helped people, is trying to say, okay, so what really matters? And is it really going to matter in the long term? And so whether we're looking at our finances or whether we're looking at the chaos du jour, does it really matter? Is it going to make an impact in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Is that something that's material? Or is it just something that in today's day and age is nothing new under the sun? It's just delivered a different way. So I realize that may sound a little bit flippant, but at the same point in time, I think it's still very pertinent advice. I heard it as a child delivering a newspaper, working with clients. I hear this quite a bit from people who they say, well, I'd like to pass along X dollars or these assets to my children. Can you help me? And we try to get to know the kids a little bit better. But ultimately what happens is children that are passive, I'm going to do my own thing, mom and dad do yours, spend every dime. We have children who are passive aggressive, like, I'm just fine, you just go about your way, I'll be okay. And we have children who want to get very involved. Unfortunately, we don't know which child is which until such time as we actually have that conversation and parents understand how to have that conversation with the child. And it may be an adult child, and most likely it's an adult child. And what happens is we try to coach them through how to begin that conversation of how did we get here to this level of family wealth, if you will, and what it took to get here and the things that mom and dad stumbled on along the way. So hopefully no different than career counseling for your children, no different than education counseling, no different than parenting counseling, which I'm sure every child has an impression of how their parent did. And oftentimes it comes out. But all that aside, literally what happens is they view money differently, and they may view money completely differently, especially as it relates to mom and dad's money, because it's not money they worked for. It's money that just shows up because mom and dad both died or mom and dad provided a gift. So how do we help educate the next generation? And oftentimes, how do we protect the next generation from that which we want to protect them from, which oftentimes is the person in their mirror? There are spendthrift trusts which protect them from themselves. That's pretty extreme. What's most important, they begin to understand what's important to them from a value perspective and how this newfound money for them can help them get to where they want to go. So we take that relationship, just like we established the existing relationship with mom, dad, or some combination thereof. They're their own individual, and oftentimes we find their many values are the same and some are a little different, but that's fine. Working with the next generation is no different than the initial relationship with the client, and it just brings a little bit more of a dynamic, a little bit more of an understanding, and perhaps a little bit more effort on our part, on everybody's part, to understand what's most important to others. If you'd like to learn more about kind of what it is I do, how to help people, how to help investors who are probably the least helped group, if you will, to learn more about, by all means, you know what to do at the bottom of the screen. Click on it, schedule a time if you'd like. At a minimum, subscribe to this channel. So we've talked about how we establish what's most important, what do people most value, and then the question becomes, well, how do we do this transfer to the next generation? How do we understand them a little bit better? I address that in the next video. I look forward to seeing you over there at the next video.